Hello and welcome back to the Maritime Warrior. I am the Maritime Warrior himself. I'm joined by a first timer here. A little bit of a backstory for this one. Wrestling with the Bros was originally going to be a four-man team, and this guy was going to be the fourth guy. He's a busy man. He's got a job. He's got a girlfriend. He's got a dog. He's got other things going on, but I finally got him on the Maritime Warrior channel. Mark Richard, how are you, buddy?
Doing good. How about you, buddy?
I cannot complain. I'm very excited. So this episode, we are talking about the first year of AEW.
Right.
You started watching AEW because you were like, oh, I love wrestling. Mm-hmm. And this one I can really start from the beginning. And you're still a big fan of AEW. So your original thoughts on AEW?
Yeah, man. Well, it was the alternative, right? It was like the WCW of the 2020s. Well, it started obviously in 2019, but that's where I started, right? Yeah. It was WCW, right? Like their cruiserweight division was insane. Like they had such great talent on there, and I was just amazed by it, right? Like my favorite wrestlers were all on there. The NWO was just taking over. Like everybody wanted to be a part of it, and it was very, very similar.
Yeah,
and you start off, and it was also it was variety, right? If you look at the other side of the fence, right?
That's keyword right there is variety. Mm-hmm. And I remember you being very excited for AEW. And I remember talking to you a lot about AEW. And you were like, I got to get this going. And Mark is one of those guys that he will not miss an episode. So he records them. And he can be months behind. But he will be watching in order to see what happened. He is a true AEW fan.
I still very much am. That's the thing, right? I'm still watching. I think I'm because lately it's been so slow. I've been a little bit busy, but I'm watching episodes from I think maybe through. Oh man, I'm still on season 3. I think I'm finishing up season 3 or something, and they're on what, season 6,
something like that. So
I don't know why it's going by so fast, but anyway, it didn't go by so fast for the first seasons. I don't think so.
No, but we'll get into why it started to go slow. But the first big thing to happen in AEW is the crowning of their first champion, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho now, a bit of a polarizing figure. Did he outstay his welcome in AEW? Maybe. Him being the first champion seemed like a no-brainer. What do you think?
Absolutely. Man, the guy still had that big, New Japan pop, I guess, if you want to call it that, right? He still had, maybe he wasn't able to move as much as he used to or anything like that, but at least he still had the pull from the crowd, and he still had the people singing his song, and you hadn't had that in so long, right?
Yeah, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as I always say, and at this point, Chris Jericho is still very much, I remember he's a walking meme. I remember his, a little bit of the bubbly.
Exactly. I wanted one of those, by the way.
Yeah. Does he still sell those? Yeah, of course.
Amazon.
But Jericho's first, he won the title from Adam Page. Adam Page would become a big figure in AEW years later. But a good first champion. His main title defense during this time is something that we are almost going to branch off into the big feud to happen in AEW in year 1. And that was he defended his title versus Cody, now known as Cody Rhodes in the WWE. He's actually the WWE champion right now. But back then, Cody Rhodes basically said, if I cannot win the AEW World Heavyweight title, I'll never challenge for it again. He didn't win, and he never challenged for the title again, never won it.
Yeah.
At this time, he's friends with MJF. And MJF is sort of like a little baby face cheering on Cody. And then he would turn on Cody. He would throw in the towel, and then he would kick him right in the ding-dong. And it would start this first big feud for MJF. This is really what put MJF on the map. Your thoughts on this feud?
Absolutely, man. I loved it. I loved when he kicked him.
Yeah.
It was so glorious.
Mark Richard, I love a good nut shot.
It kicked it off, man. Like that.
Yeah.
That's where it all started for him. You were absolutely on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Around this time, also Wardlow would become MJF's bodyguard. There's the famous match with Cody Rhodes and Wardlow, where Cody Rhodes did a moonsault off the top of the cage and broke his toe. I always remember that. He broke his toe on the landing. Wardlow seemed like he was going to be this big, massive superstar of the future, and that really never happened. Why do you think that is?
I think it's unfortunate because there was so much more to him than what he gets now. Mm-hmm. I think there absolutely is some, there can still be some work made on him, but you don't want that guy to lose his credibility, right?
No,
and where he is and being so he's been kind of fragile recently. You know, even if he is to win something, you don't want him to drop off, the face of the earth as soon as he wins it, right?
That was one of the problems with Wardlow is when he finally did win something, it almost meant nothing. Yeah. He did nothing with the TNT title, and he won it 3 times, and each reign got worse and worse. He joined the Undisputed Kingdom, and the worst thing you can do is say that you're going to win the world title and then fail miserably. And I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen Wardlow in I don't know how long.
I think he is still injured.
It's very possible.
Yeah, I can't really tell anymore. They've been so hush-hush kind of related to these things recently, because I feel like it's just being too much. Like people were just people are getting hurt on AEW.
Yeah.
They weren't quite liking that.
Yeah, the style in AEW is very we've seen some. I remember watching AEW Dynamite with you and Joel from Wrestling with the Bros, and watching Penta, or not Penta, it was Phoenix, Ray Phoenix. Basically snap his elbow.
That was sick.
That was very sick, and I remember the reaction was, what happened? And then I saw his arm was a little crooked, and I'm like, did he break his arm? And then we watched the replay, and I still remember you going, "Oh no,
oh no!" That's
in that classic Mark voice. Oh no,
the Kool-Aid man through the brick wall. Oh no, there.
But there was also was it Dante Martin when he took the Canadian Destroyer off the ladder and just Sid Vicious his leg. It's one of those things where there's a lot more demands in wrestling now than there was back in the Warrior, Hogan, Savage days, where you didn't have to do that much. Yeah. Now the bar has been raised so high that you can't avoid injuries sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the tag team titles. Do you remember the first tag team champions?
Oh man, this is terrible. I can't remember, because
you're not to be blamed, because it's confusing why they went with these two as the first tag team champions. It is SCU, Christopher Daniels and Scorpio Sky.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
not Christopher Daniels. It was Frankie Kazarian. My bad.
Right. Yeah, Frankie Kazarian, because Christopher Daniels was still going.
Yeah.
He was staying kind of in the not a singles run, but I guess he was probably nearing around the end there. So I'd imagine that's kind of what he wanted anyway.
Yes. SCU, what did SCU bring to the early days of AEW? Because you're looking at 3 veterans of professional wrestling with a very young locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, even looking at Frankie Kazarian, what he is right now, he's still going, man.
Yeah, he's one of the big names in TNA.
Title shots, he's got the experience. He's a veteran.
Yeah,
he's you could even call him a journeyman, right?
That's a good comparison. Yeah, a journeyman wrestler that never really made it to the world title. I remember Frankie Kazarian in 2003 2003, 2004 in TNA when he was Frankie the Future Kazarian, using the this is even before Bray Wyatt was using it, the Sister Abigail. That's the first time I ever saw that move, was him.
Yeah.
Christopher Daniels, he's working still with AEW in a backstage role. Christopher Daniels been wrestling. A little funny story here. Not funny story, a little fun fact. Christopher Daniels started wrestling the year Mark was born. 1993, he started wrestling. And
that nice jersey behind you. Just
that Montreal.
That out,
there you go.
Yeah.
This is audio only, so they won't know what you're talking about. But go watch Wrestling with the Bros, and you'll see the jersey. So you got Frankie Kazarian, you got Scorpio Sky. Scorpio Sky, they tried with him and failed miserably. He won the TNT title twice.
Yeah.
Is the TNT title really something that is unfixable right now?
No, I don't think it'll ever be. Like, there's always going to be someone that can bring kind of glory to it. But I think what's going on is that you've got more titles.
Yeah.
And it's to make it feel important, where you have so much talent on this roster right now, man. Like, Will Ospreay could have a title. Okada could have a title. Adam Page could have a title, whatever. Like, we're all big guys, and like even Adam Page coming back recently, like he's looking good.
Yeah,
he's aggressive.
While we're on the subject of titles, too many titles in AEW?
I would think so. I think they kind of had a point with the international title, and I think they've kind of fallen off with it.
Yeah,
where it would be defended all around the world, right?
Yeah. Well, the original title that they had was the All Atlantic. And they had like a Chinese flag on it.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's the Pacific Ocean, but I was never smart in school, so who am I to say that?
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, that's exactly what what the point is, right? Because you had this tournament where you had a bunch of people from different countries, right? You had Pac from
England.
From England, and you had, I don't even remember who it was that was in there. I know you had Malachi Black from
Denmark. Or is it Holland?
Holland. He's from Holland.
Holland. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, obviously you had people from different countries representing them, where, they were the best, I guess, that were available that weren't in the big title picture. Right?
Yeah.
So, like,
I agree.
There was a reason behind that, because they can go, like, let's say if Will Ospreay had that title, well, he would defend it in Evolve. He would defend it in, those promotions against guys that would wrestle there, right? It would bring exposure to those wrestlers, and they could be the future of AEW. Let's put the title on that guy. Let's push him. Let's push him right to the sky. Let's sign him right now for a couple of years. And, who knows? He's the next big thing, right?
That's an interesting point that you bring up there, is the potential of can he, will he, or won't he?
Yeah.
Because you look at someone like Sammy Guevara and you think that's a home run right there.
Oh, absolutely.
But they tried with the TNT title and failed miserably. The biggest failures in AEW's history seem to all revolve around that TNT title. Before we get back to the TNT title, back to the tag titles.
Yep.
The Lucha Bros would be the second tag team champions, I believe, or no, they would they would be defeated by SCU for the titles. So SCU are the first champions, and the second champions would be Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega. This would lead into a big rivalry between these two and the AEW World Heavyweight title. Mm-hmm. Memories on that?
Like, I honestly, it's been so long, and like this stuff is kind of like, it was the beginnings, right? Like, there were no real established big stars yet, other than, like, obviously the Kenny Omegas and the young
Chris Jericho,
whatever. Yeah, Chris Jericho. So, like, it was kind of like it went under the radar.
Yeah,
I guess, if you want to put it that way, because they were still establishing these guys that, because you didn't have FTR yet. You didn't have, those big teams, those big name teams. Yeah. And, it's to make those names, right? Because if you don't have them, you got to make them.
Exactly. I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah.
Another title that is introduced in 2019 is the AEW Women's Championship. Mm-hmm. And the first champion is Riho. And she would have an interesting feud with Nyla Rose.
Right.
It had no business being as good as it was, but it was. It was very entertaining, very good matches. Thoughts on these? The little tiny Riho that people always say she's too tiny, but there she is wrestling, versus this monster Nyla Rose.
Yeah, well, it's the David versus Goliath story.
Always sells, right?
It always is. Because, I remember, because we used to talk about it, and we were like, why would they do that? Like, what's the reason? But then we would always tune in and see, well, she's running into this brick wall and somehow make it through. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But I guess, like,
in wrestling terms, it does make sense because that's a tale as old as time. Is David versus Goliath, the big monster versus the underdog. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to get behind an underdog. And Riho, if she's 100 pounds, then I'm maybe 50 because she is a tiny, tiny, tiny girl. And her versus Nyla Rose was, like I said, it had no business being as good as it was, but it was.
Yeah.
And it was fun to watch.